Listen to me now. I need you to hear this. You don't set the rules halfway through the game. If you want respect, if you want love the right way, you set your standards right from the jump. Because let me tell you something. People treat you the way you teach them to treat you. And if you don't teach them early, you're going to spend your life fixing what you could have built right the first time. Let me ask you this. Do you know why so many relationships crash and burn? Why friendships fall apart? Why people stay stuck in cycles of hurt and betrayal? It's not always because somebody didn't love enough. It's because somebody didn't expect enough. And I'm going to break this down for you today, step by step. This ain't just about romance. This is about every connection in your life, your job, your friendships, your family, your partner. Let's talk about what happens when you don't set the tone early and how you can fix it. See, when you set a standard, you're not being mean and you're not being difficult. You're protecting your peace. You're guarding your heart. The Bible says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And guess what? Boundaries and standards are your guardrails. They're not walls to keep people out. They're guidelines to show people how to come in. But here's the thing. You can't set those guardrails after the car's already off the cliff. You got to lay them down at the start. When you meet someone, when you start a new job, when you're stepping into a new friendship, you're planting seeds. You're teaching people who you are, what you'll accept and what you won't. And if you skip that part, if you let things slide just because you don't want to rock the boat, you'll find yourself drowning later. Let me give you an example. There was this woman I knew. Let's call her Jessica. Jessica was smart, beautiful, had a good job, but she always struggled in relationships. She told me, Steve, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Every man I date ends up disrespecting me. They lie, they cheat, they don't value me. So I asked her, Jessica, what's the first thing you tell a man when you meet him? What do you let him know about you? She said, well, I try to be nice. I don't want to scare them off. And right there, I stopped her. I said, Jessica, that's your problem. You're so busy trying not to scare people off that you're letting the wrong people walk right in. Jessica had no standards in the beginning. She didn't ask questions like, what are your goals? How do you treat women? What do you believe in? She didn't set boundaries like, I'm not okay with dishonesty. I need consistency. I won't tolerate disrespect. And because she didn't set those boundaries, men treated her any way they wanted. But here's the kicker. Those same men turned around and respected women who did have standards. Why? Because standards make people step up. Let me tell you something. When you don't set boundaries early, you're not avoiding problems. You're just delaying them. Think about it like this. If you rent out a house and you don't tell the tenants the rules, what's going to happen? They're going to park on the grass, leave trash everywhere, and throw loud parties all night. Why? Because you didn't tell them the rules. But if you told them up front, no parking on the grass, no loud parties, clean up after yourself, you'd have peace of mind. Relationships are the same way. If you don't lay down the rules, you're going to be cleaning up messes later. Now let's take this to a spiritual level. God gave us a set of standards to live by, the 10 Commandments. Think about that. Even the Almighty didn't just say, do whatever you want. He gave us rules because He loves us and He knows that boundaries protect us from harm. So why do we think we can go through life without them? Why do we think we can love somebody or trust somebody without setting the terms? That's not love, that's chaos. And God is not the author of confusion. Now I know what you're thinking. Steve, how do I do this? How do I set standards without scaring people off? Let me break it down for you. Know what you want. Before you can set standards, you got to know what they are. What matters to you? What are your non-negotiables? Write them down if you have to. Communicate early. When you meet someone new, whether it's a partner, a friend, or a boss, don't be afraid to say, this is what I need and this is what I expect. You're not being rude, you're being honest. Enforce your standards. A boundary without enforcement is just a suggestion. If someone crosses your line, you got to call them out. Not with anger, but with firmness. Be willing to walk away. This is the hardest part, but it's also the most powerful. If someone refuses to respect your standards, you have to be willing to leave. Because staying where you're not valued is the fastest way to lose yourself. Let me share another story. I had a friend, let's call him Marcus, who worked at a job where his boss disrespected him constantly. Marcus wanted to quit, but he was scared. He kept telling himself, maybe it'll get better, maybe I just need to work harder. But one day, Marcus finally set a boundary. He went to his boss and said, I need you to treat me with respect. If you can't do that, I'll have to leave. And you know what happened? His boss apologized. The disrespect stopped. Marcus was shocked, but I wasn't. See, people will only push you as far as you let them. When Marcus stood up for himself, he taught his boss how to treat him. Now let's bring it back to love. Ladies, listen to me. You are not too much. You are not asking for too much. You just need to find someone who's willing to give what you deserve. And fellas, this applies to you too. Don't let anyone guilt you into accepting less than your worth. A real partner won't see your standards as a burden. They'll see them as a blueprint for how to love you right. The most dangerous betrayal you'll ever face isn't from someone else, it's from yourself. That's the betrayal that cuts the deepest. Because when someone crosses your boundaries, sure, it hurts, it stings. But when you cross your own boundaries, when you let yourself down, that's the kind of wound that doesn't just heal over time. It leaves a scar on your soul. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're building a house and you tell yourself, I'll never settle for cheap materials because I want this house to last. But then one day you're in a rush, or maybe the pressure gets to you and you think, well, just this one time, I'll use something substandard. You know what happens? That weak material becomes the foundation. And when the storms come, and they will come, that's the part of the house that'll crumble first. It's the same with your boundaries. When you tell yourself, I won't tolerate lying, but you stay with someone who lies, you're laying a shaky foundation. You're telling yourself and everyone else that your word doesn't really mean much. And here's the kicker. If you don't believe in your own standards, why should anyone else? Let's go deeper. Every time you let someone slide when they cross a line you said was non-negotiable, you're sending a silent message to them and to yourself. That message says, my feelings don't matter. My values aren't that important. And you might not even realize it at first, but over time, it starts to eat away at you. You start questioning your worth. You start wondering if you're asking for too much. You begin to shrink yourself little by little until you're barely recognizable. That's the real cost of betraying your own boundaries. You lose a piece of who you are every single time. And let me tell you something. People can sense it. They can feel when you don't fully believe in your own worth. And the people who are looking to take advantage, they'll use that against you. They'll push further and further, testing how much you'll tolerate until you've given so much of yourself away that there's barely anything left. But here's the hard truth. Those people, they're not the real problem. You are. Because the moment you compromise on what you know is right for you, you've opened the door. It's like leaving the key under the mat for someone to walk right in and take whatever they want. Now, I know what some of y'all are thinking. Steve, it's not that simple. I love this person. I don't want to lose them. And I get that. But let me ask you this. What's the point of holding on to someone if it means letting go of yourself? What good is love if it's built on lies, disrespect, and broken promises? Here's what I need you to understand. Boundaries are not about controlling other people. They're about controlling yourself. They're about saying, this is what I need to feel safe, to feel respected, to feel loved. And if you can't meet that, then I love myself enough to walk away. You see, when you betray your own boundaries, you're not just losing trust in the other person. You're losing trust in yourself. And when you can't trust yourself, it's hard to move forward in any part of your life. But here's the good news. It's never too late to rebuild that trust. It's never too late to say, I deserve better. And from this day forward, I'm going to hold myself accountable. Because here's the thing. Boundaries are not a one-time deal. They're a daily practice. They're like a muscle. You've got to strengthen them every day with every decision you make. And the more you stick to them, the more you'll realize just how powerful you are. Let me leave you with this. The world will try to tell you that setting boundaries makes you difficult, that having standards makes you hard to love. But don't you dare believe that lie. Boundaries don't make you hard to love. They make you easier to love because they show people how to treat you right. So the next time you feel tempted to let something slide, I want you to ask yourself this. If I let this go, what am I teaching myself about my worth? And if the answer doesn't sit right with your spirit, you already know what to do. Hold the line, respect yourself enough to enforce your boundaries. Because when you do, you're not just protecting your heart, you're setting the stage for the kind of love, respect, and peace that you truly deserve. And boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about letting the right people in. They're about creating space for love, respect, and peace to thrive. So, set your standards early. Speak your truth. And don't ever let anyone make you feel bad for knowing your worth. Because at the end of the day, the people who are meant for you will rise to meet your standards. And the ones who don't, they were never meant to stay. If this message hit home for you, share it with somebody who needs to hear it.